Hello, can everybody hear me? Is everyone there? A few technical issues. If you could,
Loud and clear, Simon, just for reference.
Okie dokie. Okay, so we're just waiting for a few more people to join, but thank you all for joining. Welcome to the first webinar of 2020. This one, obviously, we're going to focus on factory design utilities. So thank you for taking the time on a Friday morning to spend some time with us. The webinar should be about 45-ish minutes, so we'll get started. But we're going to introduce you today, for those of you that don't know, to factory design utilities, which is a bit of a hidden gem within the Autodesk portfolio of products. And believe me, it's not just about designing factories. So let us take you through. If anyone's having technical problems, just log it in the chat or the questions box. So just a quick agenda. So I'm not going to bore you too much, but I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction to who, for those of you that don't know Man and Machine, a bit of an introduction to who we are. Then Chris England, who's presenting this slide deck with this webinar with me, is going to take you through an introduction to factory design utilities and what it is and what it does, and some demonstrations and some examples that aren't just focused on designing factories. So first of all, I'm Simon Brand. I'm the manufacturing sales manager here at Man and Machine. I know a lot of the people that are on the call, so welcome. Good to see you again. I've been involved in the Autodesk channel for a long time, far too long, and have a lot of experience in and around factory design utilities, either for designing workflows around lean manufacturing, helping companies to more efficiently design their processes, or for other applications, which Chris is going to show you in a bit. Man and Machine, just to introduce who we are, for those of you that don't know, we're the largest Autodesk reseller in Europe, sometimes the world, depending on the exchange rate. We've got 25,000 customers and over 1,000 staff now all across Europe. And we're specialists in Autodesk technology, and that is everything involved around Autodesk, from AutoCAD to Fusion to the AEC and product design collections. And our focus really, obviously, is around Autodesk as a primary tool, but we're all about providing solutions. So actually, over the years, we've actually developed our own technologies, our own software applications that a lot of the, whether that's around CAM, around Hypermill, which is a Man and Machine product, or around electrical design. We've designed our own products to be complementary to the Autodesk suites. We've also teamed up with a number of other applications for specific things. So, for example, Cool Orange for doing Vault integration and triggering events, to Faro and scanning and some BIM applications as well. And these have allowed us to get lots of accreditations for the UK BIM Alliance and Building Smart, to be able to help our clients to do things more efficiently. But we're all about three main things. So those three things for us as a business is about helping our clients to make better products, to sell more of those products, and ultimately, why we're all here, to create more profit. And one of the key things for factory design is all about making more profit, making what you're already doing more efficient, whether that's introducing new machinery, robotics, different conveyor systems, how to ensure that those are done in the right way to make sure that the profitability is still there for the business. And the way that Autodesk sort of termed that, I've been involved in lots of customers over the years, looking at introducing new technologies, new machines perhaps, and they get to the point, they decide where it's going to go in the factory, and then when the machine turns up on the day, they forgot that there was a fire escape or something in the way, and actually having to rejig the entire factory adds extra cost to the whole growth strategy. And that's not good for anyone. So factory design utilities allows companies to effectively change and evolve their internal processes and process flows to make more efficient use of what they're doing today. And that's right. I'm going to hand over now to Chris England. So Chris is going to introduce himself and to guide you through the rest of this presentation.
Right, thank you, Simon. So is my screen showing all right?
That's perfect, Chris. Thank you.
Just to confirm. Okay, cool. So yeah, my name's Chris England. I'm an applications engineer at Man & Machine. I've studied mechanical design. I've been in application engineering now for 6 years or so, and also I've spent some time in the drawing office. My choice products, I suppose, are Inventor, Fusion 360, AutoCAD, and Vault. And also, I'm passionate about design automation, additive, subtractive manufacturing, and generative design. So just to go on with our my slides. So, you know, included in the factory utilities workflow is the, well, obviously all of the PDMC. So you get the factory utilities with your product design manufacturing collection. But the products that would be involved in the utilities workflow would be Autodesk process analysis, AutoCAD architecture, mechanical, MEP. So you can't use your vanilla AutoCAD, but any of the ones, you know, with those you can use the vanilla versions. And then we obviously have Inventor Professional at the heart of the factory utilities workflow, and Navisworks on the visualization and I suppose review side of things. So we have also got plugins for Vault Professional, so you can do configurations that come preset with Autodesk Vault, and of course all the other products that we have in PDMC. So there's no reason we can't use, you know, CAM or Nastran or any of the other products that come with your collection, such as Recap. All right, so the general factory utility workflow, you can start at any point of this workflow. Of course, if you do want to connect your process flow analysis, it's generally best to start there, as it's one directional. So in process flow analysis, we can actually create manufacturing processes and generate simulation reports, or simulate and generate reports. Then we can also, from there, we can actually take those, so we can attach DWGs to our process flows, and then move it straight into our into an AutoCAD layout from there, and then start organizing our assets. Alternatively, we can start at any of the other points. So I like to always start in Inventor or Vault. And so from AutoCAD point of view, we can do our 2D asset layout. So it's all plan view, and we can also add in our material flow analysis from there. So we can also do some process analysis within AutoCAD. Inventor is used for the 3D sort of assets layouts, so we can also lay out assets within Inventor, and also, of course, our asset creation happens within Inventor. And then Navisworks can be used for review of the layout, and also adding external data. So if you've got a building, perhaps from Revit, or perhaps a scan from that you want to bring in from Recap, Navisworks is generally the best place to sort of add in all of that data, and then we can do our clash detections and such from there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Autodesk process analysis. It's I suppose one of the products within the factory utilities that doesn't get mentioned a lot, and it's quite handy. We can simulate our factory processes. We can identify bottlenecks and create process reports of those bottlenecks, so to sort of see where we can add in extra processes to try and alleviate problems within our process workflows. We can also attach assets to the process to start out DWG layouts. Now, generally, I don't start there, but you know, I usually use process analysis as a separate tool. But there's nothing wrong with starting there and attaching your assets to the processes you set up. So I'm going to jump over and show you process analysis. Just going over. We all see process analysis. Simon, we're good there?
Yeah, all looks good.
Okay, cool. So process analysis is just a cloud-based application, although we do save locally. So I'm just going to start a new process flow and call it factory webinar. So when we come into the process analysis window, we pretty much just have a grid, and it's quite a simple product to use. We do have our assets, so our same factory asset that runs through AutoCAD and Inventor is still available here, so this is where we can attach our assets, but I'm not going to do that for now. So we can start by adding in some sources, and I'm going to add in 2 here in this case. and I'll just rename them to be part 1. So what I'll do in this little simulation that I'm going to do is simulate something like an L bracket for piping, for example, where we'd need to have 2 components, 2 angle irons or something to that effect, and we'd weld them together. So my first process would be taking the 2 and welding them. I'm going to add another process further down the line and a buffer in between. So the buffer would be used for any sort of storage or any sort of, I suppose, halfway house for our process. And then obviously I want to end with my final product. So my first process, I'm going to call welding bay or something to that effect. And we'll just have a, I suppose, we'll have store rack. So storage before. And then the last process we're going to call hot dip galving. So we're going to have a hot dip galv in our process. Right, so I can set these up, or firstly attach in my product. So I'm not going to do any changes to the product as it is. We've currently got an output rate of 60 per hour, which will be more than enough for this. In my welding bay, I want to make sure that I'm combining the 2. So let's say we have a jig set up. So we're going to start with a 5-minute setup there, and the processing time we'll set to 15 minutes. And also in my action, I'm going to merge it so that it takes an input of each part. So 2 parts, 1 output. We then go and move it to the store rack, where it then waits to be added into our hot dip galv. Now in the hot dip galv, we're going to say that we have a jig for these that we dip 5 at a time, for example. So we're going to start with 5. So it's going to wait for 5 to build up in the buffer before it starts this process. I also just want to set up my timings here. So setup time we'll set to 5 minutes again, and we'll set the hot dip galv process to be 30 minutes. And then we get to our end product. So our end product, we want to try and get to a target quantity of some sort. So we'll look at 200 per hour for the moment. I haven't set up too many, focus too much on time, more our general output, but let's see how we get along with our simulation. So we can simulate. I'm going to just speed it up a little bit, and we can see how eventually we end up with a bit of a bottleneck on our store rack, right? So we end up with quite a high utilization. So I can go and generate reports of this. I can view my line efficiency summary. All right, so we can see our efficiencies and our utilization. So our efficiency is quite high, and so is our utilization at this stage. And if I go back, I can generate another report, which is our cycle time summary. So we can see the welding bay has only been half utilized, while the hot dip galv bay is being fully utilized. So I could potentially fix something like this, or identify that as a bottleneck. So I could go and copy and paste my hot dip galv. Of course, I could upgrade it or add more output to it. Oopsie. Just grab this. There we go. Move that up, and now I can split the processes. So the copy I've made is essentially the same base. I've just gone and built another one. So if I reset my simulation now and simulate, I'm going to go through speedily so we can see that we don't have any more bottlenecks. If I go and generate that same summary report, we can see that, well, we're still underutilizing our welding, so we could probably even go a bit higher. But yeah, that's a brief little demo and introduction into our process flow. If you do have any questions as we're going along, you're welcome to post them in the questions box, and Simon will try and answer. If not, we'll get to it a bit later. So following on from the process flow, I wanted to show you some of the vault configurations that come in. So you can add in factory vault configuration in Vault Professional. You simply just add it, and it is one of the pre-configurations. You can add it to an existing vault, and then it allows you to publish your assets to Vault, and Vault then manages your assets, which is quite a handy function. So I'll quickly switch over to my Vault to show you a bit how that looks. I've got a copy design window, just going to close that. So in our factory Vault, you can see that there's some extra added fields here. Just make that large, so we can see our factory assets, and all the assets published to our Vault are available for viewing here. and we can go and see info about that, see what that asset looks like. Any of our assets there, and we also can control our factory layouts, so we can have all of our layouts labeled here. And then of course, after that, our vault works much the same as it would normally, apart from having a factory assets library folder where it stores all of our factory assets. And as we go and build up our layouts, we can then, it publishes and keeps our factory data coordinated from there. So I won't bore you with the more details on how Vault looks and feels. It pretty much doesn't change too much other than adding in the few enhancements for our factory data, as well as Vault Pro. If we are using something like data standard, it does have, we can negate using the data standard on the actual assets. So it'll only use it for our layouts and other products that we create. All right, so then also we can use parametric design for creating assets. So obviously we can take our assets and use any CAD and just take a static asset, but using parametrics in assets can also help us set variations. And of course we can have open parameters as well as using iLogic. So if we have an assembly in an asset, it's always good, we can use a combination of iLogic to be able to drive these assets, which obviously saves us time in publishing multiple assets in the long run. And of course, change variations in order, we can change the variations of these in our AutoCAD designs or from Inventor. So to just jump over and show you how that would look, I just want to make sure I get my correct PLC case. So I'm just going to go into my Vault and open. So I'll be using Vault, with Factory as we go through these workflows and as I discuss things. And all right, so I have my PLC case over here. And if I have a look, okay, it needs an update. But if I have a look, it is an iLogic driven well, currently just an assembly. So I can change various sizes. And it's just checking out a Vault while it quickly runs the changes. And it manipulates the data accordingly. So I'm just going to quickly avoid that by checking everything out now. Oh, not checking, sorry. Check it all out. All right, so then, with the iLogic data in place, which is essentially just parametrics at this stage, there's no fancy rules, but you can use, whatever iLogic you would like to add to your model. We can go into the asset builder from here, and in the factory asset builder, which is quite a simple environment, we pretty much just add a landing surface. 3D mouse has stopped working. So if we add our landing surface, we can then add an insertion point being the point that we insert from. I'll leave it to the center for now. And we can also define connectors, which is for our snap nodes. In this case, I don't need any snap nodes. I quite enjoy being able to just lay things out in AutoCAD with our normal AutoCAD tools. And we can list any key parameters. So if you want open parameters, you just list them as key and publish the asset from there. If not, you can go and actually add in asset variants. Now, asset variants work out to be a lot like what we would imagine an iPart to be. So it becomes table-based. So I've got a small, medium, and large in this case. And I just want to make sure that I've got all my variations correct. So smallest, that looks right then. Okay, so once I've got those variations, I just go OK. And to publish the asset, I'll just save it first. Even with that, it'll always ask for a save before you publish. It'll be a quicker one. And then I've got the option. So now, once again, with Vault, I have the option to use my destination asset location to be in my Vault. And I can go publish, and I'll add a new folder called PLC and just publish it into that. So with the 3 variations that I've added, it's going to need to publish the DWG for all 3 combinations, and of course all the other background data with it. If we leave open parameters, what we'll find is that it'll publish just the one, but we can then drive those parameters as an open-ended sort of model within our factory layout. And if you do use a vault form, you can also go and just edit that asset and take the asset and manipulate the form as you would normally for vault. So it looks like it's blown up my PLC case, but it's still fine. We're okay. Okay, so I'll use that asset again when I'm placing and showing you layouts in a little while. So I'll leave that one there for now, and we'll jump back to our slides. So yeah, using parametric design can definitely benefit with your workflows, especially if you have products that just can be manipulated in certain ways, maybe a length, a drivable length, or something to that effect. Now, using factory design for the general terminology, factories, obviously we have all the benefits of the material flow analysis within AutoCAD. There's plenty of factory-focused assets. So, using factory design in factories, there are other assets within the library that are also useful, but there are a lot of default assets that come with factory utilities that are beneficial towards factory layouts and factory designs. We can also publish supplier models from using any CAD, so it doesn't matter where your suppliers have designed their models, and especially if you're not manufacturing it, you could just use a simple part file or step file or any of the other products, CATIA, Solid Edge, or any of the others. Bring it straight into Inventor and just publish it as an asset from there. So, if you're laying out a CNC machine, you could get a model of your CNC, you can lay it out, perhaps a robotic arm or a weld bay or whatever it is that you need to use. Bring it into Inventor, any CAD will do the rest, and you just publish it as an asset and can use it from there. We can also use existing DWG layouts. So obviously, if we have a factory layout that's currently lying in AutoCAD or in DWG format, or I suppose any 2D format, we can then bring it in and use that as a starting foundation for our new factory layout in factory utilities. And then, of course, the snap nodes make it easy for connection. So, when we do use the snap nodes for things like what we'd have over here with our conveyors, when you place in things that need to fit together, the snap nodes really do make life quite easy. And then, of course, what we would like to talk about is the other uses for factory utilities. So, of course, the name factory utilities alludes to just using this tool for factories, but I've found multiple uses for it in various other industries, and industries like shelving, racking, and warehouse layout, electronic component layout being, I suppose, a surprising one, plant layout, retail and shop fitting layout, and also kitchen layout. So you'll see the general theme is layouts, and of course, anything that we can do a layout for, and often where you'd want to have the availability of laying out with a GA or a top view, and we can then wanting to move to having a 3D model at the same time, factory design can fit any of those workflows. And also, a good thing to consider is using factory design with the other environments within Inventor or other workflows. So, of course, I mentioned, within the PDMC, we've got our nesting tools and our sheet metal design. We've got CAM, we've got our NASTRAM, and of course, we have things like tube and pipe and cable and harness. So, we can use factory assets to actually place published components. So things like cable and harness components, where we have our nodes for placement of cabling, can work very well for laying out something like a PLC case in this example here at the top right. And of course, if we publish tube and pipe components, so publishing assets with nozzles and nozzle connections at the end of the day can definitely help when we're laying out general assets within something like a water treatment plant, which I'll be showing you shortly as well. We can then just go and add our tube and pipe connections to those assets and simply work from there. So it does work very well when looking into adding it to the other environments that we have. All right, so I'm going to show you some of that now. So showing onto the layout stage of factory design. So if we go and have a look from the start page, we have our layout browser. That's also one of the newer features within the factory utilities. So I can go and either open a layout from my local drive. I can open from my Vault. In this case, I'm going to go create a new one. I'm going to put in my layouts folder, and I have a factory webinar folder. Let's see. Right. So I'm going to call the first layout, I'm just going to call it my webinar WPT layout. So I'm going to do a little water treatment plant layout. So when we start a factory layout, it looks like this. We have our asset browser on the side, and we have all of our factory properties on the left. Well, you can rearrange the tabs as you like, but we do have these facilities for use with factory. Now, one of the handy tools that we have is to be able to place a DWG underlay. So I'm going to place one from Vault, and I have a little block plan layout that I've got drawn up in AutoCAD. So very simple, just for general guidelines on laying out. And from here, what I'm going to do is just show you the model. We can see that there's now a DWG attached, which when we go to AutoCAD, so I'm going to save this. And I'm just going to sync to AutoCAD, because as I told you, I do like to lay out in AutoCAD. I find it simpler to be able to move assets. I just jumped up on the wrong screen. Just quickly bring that over. So we can see how we then have an XREF of that block plan in the background that we can use. And once again, our same factory asset browser is available. So, jumping back to Inventor, we'll see all the same assets. You can see my Vault assets. And in AutoCAD, we have the same. So it shares a common library between the two, which is abundantly useful. And if I go and have a look in our W2P folder, I've got a couple of assets that I have published. So I'm going to go and start placing some. Simply dragging them out, I can bring in a clarifier. I'm just going to go place one for now. Right, and of course I don't want to have to rotate each time, so I can use my simple AutoCAD tools. So copy with base point and paste with base point. And I can simply just space them out however I want. All right, I'm going to fall a bit short, but that's okay. So there we go. My clarifiers are laid out. I want to place now a buffer tank. And with my nozzle, I'm going to place a buffer tank. I can see that my snap node wasn't aligned correctly, but it's no problem. I can use my move tool and simply place it into place for the block plan. Bring out a pump room. Once again, not aligned, but that's not a problem. So I can even use my tracking to help me out here. Of course, snap nodes in this case aren't too helpful for me because I'm laying everything out independently. And as I go through, I can lay out all my various assets that I'm looking for. I'll just move these into place. So simply using our AutoCAD tools to lay out can make things much faster in terms of layouts. There's no reason we can't do it in Inventor. I just, coming from an AutoCAD background, I do enjoy, the ability to be able to lay out my geometry from a 2D perspective. Once we've got everything we want placed, laid out as we want it, we can then go and save our file and jump back to Inventor. So the assets sync will bring in, all the 2D assets as it's linked to 3D models and just start placing them. And as it populates our layout, we can see the 3D coming into fruition. So I then have all my assets placed. Now, I might want to be able to, add in something. So I've got a slab that I want to add, but that's a normal part. So there's no reason I can't go and add in, normal parts. I'm just going to say place from Vault. I think I've got it in my layouts folder. I have a slab here, right? So I've got a little slab to place. So I can place it in, and I can use my normal Inventor rules as well. So I can just constrain. I want to constrain the top of this to my XY. Flip that over. and simply carry on, with my normal AutoCAD procedures. Sorry, Inventor procedures, not AutoCAD. And as I place it, I note that I have a plinth where my clarifiers need to actually stand on top of. So I've laid them out to be on the floor. That's not a problem. In Inventor, we've obviously got the third axis. So I'm just going to select all of those. You can see that's 750 high. And I'm just going to go and use my factory tools now to reposition those assets. So I can place it, doesn't really matter as long as I get my Z axis in. And I can simply move it up by 750. Right click and done. And my clarifiers now sit on my plinth. So from here, I could start moving in, so I could save this and then use this layout to start adding in my tube and pipe, for example. I could use it, in downstream workflows. I can start adding in, or I can start reviewing things from the Navisworks point of view. I'll sync to Navis. Didn't open Navisworks beforehand, so it'll just need to open, and we'll see that it imports. So Navisworks is a great tool for reviewing processes, obviously for non-CAD users as well. We have free versions of Navisworks, so once we've created Navisworks layouts, it's great for the the non-CAD parties to be able to come and review the model and check things. So we can see that it brings in our assets as we go. It'll need to load all the assets as well. When we publish in factory assets, it does create Navisworks files as well. So unfortunately, I've chosen a rather large assembly. We've got quite a few parts that it needs to process, but it's okay. It doesn't take too long. Once it's loaded, of course, then the sync will be much smoother, unless, of course, we add any more assets. And the benefit of this as well is that now we're adding our tube and pipe to this layout. The tube and pipe components will come through too, as you can see with the slab being a normal component, and it comes through into the layout without any problems. So fantastic for review. We could do collision detection between our pipes and all the rest. If we were laying out, in perhaps a pump room instead of using containerized pump rooms, we could add in that pump room built-in and have our pumps placed, for example, and then, with all of our pipe work, and then we could do clashes between the structure of the pump room, and quite handy for review. Let's just sync in all of that, and we can see that in Navisworks we now have our layouts available for review. And of course, this will be saved as a NWF file, and we have things like Navisworks Freedom. Guys can be reviewing it through Navisworks on site if need be. So obviously, Navisworks Freedom is handy and useful on a tablet. So nice addition to the workflow. And of course, we have our normal Navisworks workflows to append any other models. So when we go and append, Navisworks is fantastic with the file formats that it offers for adding in. So we can add in our Revit files, we can add in MicroStation or any of the others that you might want. Recap, scan data can come in. And of course, we also have the Vault edition here, so we can save all of this and manage it all through Vault. Recap edition, and our factory tools also here. One thing we won't be able to do from Navisworks' point of view is obviously add any assets or manipulate. Well, you can move geometry if you want to, but I suppose it's better to drive it all from Inventor and AutoCAD, or AutoCAD, and then it'll just sync it back to Navisworks. Right, so that's a general sort of layout feel. Now I wanted to show you another sort of perspective on this. So back to my PLC case, although I have another one prepared for this. So if I go and open from Vault, and I go find, let me quickly jump to the right folder and go to my layouts. So all the way back, and layouts and factory webinar. And if I go and find my PLC case, so I've made a copy of my PLC in this case. I've turned off the iLogic rules for this purpose. I already scaled it to the size I wanted it. And what I've got is obviously a board at the back. which you saw in the image, had components on it. So, taking a certain part of a layout as well can also work for factory layouts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demote this whole component board using my demote process in Inventor. So normal Inventor function, demote, and instead of going to a normal assembly, I'm going to go to a factory layout. And I'm going to say PLC component layout. Right, and make sure that it's in the folder I want it to go to. Where are we? Factory layout. All right, so we put it in there and we say OK. So what I have now is I have I can open that independently. See? All right, so that has demoted it in the wrong format, but that's not a problem. I'll quickly just jump to take this apart, and we'll say unground, and I'll just ground it in its initial root positions. So it lays out onto the factory layout. It's okay when it's in the next assembly, it's constrained to the part. So that'll be fine. So having something like this, once again, we can use as a factory layout. So for a component design, I'm once again going to jump to AutoCAD. So I'm just going to save this and jump over to AutoCAD. Let it do its thing. So we can see the normal components are also being, well, we can use the normal components, the normal Inventor components as a underlay in this sense, so we know where we're laying out our components. So if I go and find my electrical components, I can go and start popping on some, start with a buzz bar at the bottom. That will start, let's just move that buzz bar over. Place a power box, and we'll do some switches. Let's see that snap. I'll copy it. All right, not very neat organization at this stage, but of course you can use all your dimension tools. Place control box. Place a SCADA unit. And a couple of resistors, I guess, maybe 2 resistors and 2 thermostats. Oops. Right, so there we go. So once again, I can save that, sync back to Inventor. And that could work, let's see. Right, and it'll then populate those assets onto my DB board. Okay, oops, jump back to AutoCAD. Right, so you can see all those assets ready for placement. And what I've also got is, of course, my nodes for cable and harness placement. So I can then go and start wiring this up and routing it through my trunking. And if I save this, and I go have a look at my original PLC case, it looks like my, there we go. So I've changed the assembly, and we've got a component laid out PLC box ready for wiring. So it's good to be imaginative with factory design, and anything where you're laying out. It's always a good tool to enhance your productivity and also get designs out quicker, especially if this was for tender stage or something like that, and we still needed to make changes. It's nice, quick, easy, and efficient to lay out all these components, and we're ready to go and start creating drawings for layouts and all the rest. So jumping back to my PowerPoint, I think we're going to I'm going to hand back over to Simon, and feel free to ask any questions if you type them in the question box as we go through. I'll answer them as we can. There'll be more time for questions once Simon's just covered a couple more slides.
Thanks, Chris. Really good presentation. Thank you very much. Hopefully, if you've got any questions, please ask them in the question box. There's a couple of questions that come in while you've been talking, Chris. You might as well cover them now. So one of the questions here is around the process flow analysis that you showed at the start. Obviously, you showed it in a web application, I think it was.
Yes.
But the question was, if you've already got a sort of 2D representation of your factory, how do you use the process flow analysis to analyze whether the layout of your factory is correct already?
Yeah.
Can you do that?
If I was doing that, I would probably, well, you've got two options really. You can use the process flow analysis, and you can start from sort of scratch, like I sort of showed you, dragging in your processes, because that's more of a theoretical flow diagram anyway. Your other option, of course, especially if it's in AutoCAD, is to use the factory material flow analysis. So you can take your 2D layouts, it doesn't have to be factory assets, and block them to different zones or different bays. And once you've got them as, well, I suppose once you've made those blocks, you can go and assign them as your areas, your various areas within your factory layout, and then you can assign a material flow analysis through the AutoCAD side of your factory utility tools.
Okay.
That'll make sense.
And what about? And could you use the process flow to analyze? Let's say, for example, this you had a process of various different people in a bay doing various different elements. Could you use the process flow to analyze how the line goes across?
Internally within that bay, yes. Yeah.
You
could break it into smaller components. I mean, a processor could be anything. You could look at it from a whole, sort of area or, section within your factory, or you could break it down into, the subsections. So within one section, you can have various processes. So, a source being an in and a product being an out, even if it's not a 100% completed product.
Okay. And there's another question about scan data. You mentioned
yes.
If you've got a scan of your data. I'm guessing that if you scanned your factory, if you'd done your layout in 2D and linked the 2D and 3D together, you could then merge it together with your scan, I guess, in Navisworks. Is that right? You
can merge it, yeah, pretty much I think in all three you could merge it.
Okay.
So your scan data can come in the Inventor stage, or in even AutoCAD. Although AutoCAD's kind of not so useful being a 2D version, we're laying out from a top view, but we can certainly use it for the outlines of the area. But generally, I like to use it from a Navisworks point of view. I find Navisworks is the most comfortable tool to be working with the scan data and referencing it in. But you can certainly bring it into Inventor with no problem and lay out according to it as well.
And I guess that would, that customer I mentioned at the start of mine a few years ago that had bought a new machine and then planned where it was going, but then when they got the machine in, realised there was a fire escape there. They didn't have space for it. I guess having the scan data with the 2D and 3D would kind of get rid of those sorts of situations.
Yeah, certainly. And then in Navisworks, you can actually do collision between scan data and your modeled data as well. So that could also alleviate that problem.
So we kind of showed a little bit around the other areas of factory design, the worst named product in Autodesk's portfolio, the other things that it could be used, But I guess it's clear that it's kind of anything that's around layout. So if you're kind of linking the 2D and 3D, that's the key benefit.
Yeah, and for a lot of customers, I've found, generally, if you come in from AutoCAD or you're still in AutoCAD because you do these large layouts and you wanting to sort of get to a 3D model point of view, it's great for that conversion stage as well because, designers are obviously more comfortable in the product they know. And, with this, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You can still use AutoCAD, but you get the benefit of, having the 3D model attached in Inventor and then Navisworks.
And there's a couple of other questions that I can answer, excuse me, around the pricing of factory design. So so factory design utilities isn't sold as a standalone product. It's actually included in Autodesk's product design and manufacturing collection. So anyone that has access to product design and manufacturing collection, whether that's a standalone license or a floating license, already has this technology. The product design collection includes obviously AutoCAD, Inventor, Navisworks, as well as the factory design utilities. So everything we've shown today is all included in the product design collection. There's also a question that's quite hard to answer, I guess, but around from a financial point of view, how can running analysis on your factory actually help you increase profitability? And I guess, you know, in my time, certainly, I've seen a lot of customers looking to expand the use of technology to make use of the space they've got, and being able to analyze process flows allows you to kind of get a more efficient factory flow, and that's just from the factory point of view, I guess. What about you, Chris? It's difficult to kind of put a number on it, I guess, but
so obviously on the process flow, it's you know, the theoretical side. So looking at how your materials flow, how many numbers you can produce per hour, per day, you know, per minute, or whatever it is you're able to achieve. And then from the AutoCAD material flow analysis, it also brings into perspective layout and transportation. So of course, you know, you might have a bay that's, you know, let's call it bay 1, 2, and 3, and you go from bay 1, which is on the left-hand side of your factory, to bay 2, which is on the far right of your factory, and then bay 3 in the middle. And simply by moving, you know, bay 2 to where bay 3 is and bay 3 to the far right, you've now got an even flow, and the travel of your product is a lot shorter. And of course, then also you can add in, so maybe perhaps you've got guys who are carrying it, perhaps you have a forklift, and maybe adding a conveyor or something else. You know, looking at those sort of things can also obviously impact how that material flows and how quickly you can get it through the different bays of your workshop. So depending on how large your process, your whole overall process and facility is, I definitely think there is room for improvement. But of course, you know, these are things that I would imagine have been considered manually in the past, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Well, quite often I speak to customers that are doing factory planning, but it's done with a 2D AutoCAD and an Excel form, Excel sheet, and you know, it's certainly doesn't lead anything towards, you know, being truly lean on the manufacturing, and often implementing new technology, you know, new machines or whatever, or robotics or anything like that. You know, it's almost done finger in the air, it should go about there sort of thing. But actually having some analytics on where it should go and what the best process flow is going to be really useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to hand the screen back to me, and we'll just close off, because we've been slightly longer than we said we would be. So I know, appreciate people have got work to do on a Friday. So share my screen. So all I was just as it started there. That's annoying. So just to close off, so obviously as Man and Machine, we obviously help our customers with support and with training. One of the things that we've seen lots of our customers wanting to use recently is our blog page. So if you haven't already seen it, on our website we have a whole area around where our people like Chris and our other technical chaps are writing in-depth blogs around helping, whether that's specific technical issues or you know, or support issues that we have. So there's quite a useful resource for people that don't already know about it. If you're interested in anything around that we've discussed today, or I know there's some other questions that have come in that we haven't had time to answer, but I'm conscious of time, just drop me a line, or drop us an email or whatever. Just let us know if we can help, if we can come and help you with your processes, whether that's helping you to learn these products, these technologies, or helping, you know, implement a factory design workflow yourselves. And then just to finish, obviously I said at the start that this was the first of a series of webinars. We ran a number of webinars last year, and they were very successful and very well received. Hopefully you found today useful. We will be probably on Monday now, be putting this webinar on YouTube. So if any of your colleagues that couldn't make it today, you might be interested in this sort of stuff, then please follow that. Plus also, if you're interested in any of our future topics, please watch our website, watch our communication. The future webinars will be coming soon. And that's it. If anyone's got any other questions, I'll just drop them in the questions box and we'll pick them up offline. But thank you everyone for your time today.
Yeah, thank you guys.